everybody, welcome back to my movie review series. Today we'll be discussing Crash. You know how we do it. I'll read you some logistics and overviews about the movie, give you my overall thoughts and impressions. Past that, I will give you my grade. If you have not seen the movie and would like to, you're going to shut off the video because there will be spoiler alerts. We'll be discussing the plot synopsis as well as the character development and any similar movies or major themes. So, what do we got for Crash? It was released in 2004. It is rated R. It is a crime/drama. It is an hour and 52-minute runtime. You can watch it for free on Pluto TV, or I watched it on Freevee, which I think is some sort of like association with Amazon Prime Video. But it says, writer-director Paul Haggis interweaves several interconnected stories about race, class, family, and gender in Los Angeles in the aftermath of 9/11. Characters include a district attorney, played by Brendan Fraser, and his casually prejudiced wife, Sandra Bullock, dating police detectives Graham, played by Don Cheadle, and Rhea, Jennifer Esposito, a victimized Middle Eastern store owner and a wealthy African-American couple, played by Terrence Deshawn Howard and Thandie Newton, humiliated by a racist traffic cop, played by Matt Dillon. It says it was released in 2005, but it also says in 2004, so you never really know. Gotta keep them on their toes. Got nominated for a bunch of awards, it looks like. We didn't get any box office numbers. 78% liked it on Google, 7.6 out of 10 on Film Affinity, 74% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb. Can't even round down to 6.9. It is unsettling, shocking, and visceral. What did I think overall? I enjoyed it. Again, the crime detective scene is just well overplayed. I've seen so many movies about that kind of plot line, but this one I thought it did have some novelty in just how much it interweaves the different timelines of the different characters. So I thought there was some novelty to that. I had seen it before. Kind of liked it a little bit the first time. Again, probably don't know the plot, but or this was back in high school, so probably was just watching with some girls or something. Again, not just me. Again, like I never got any girls, but when we watched this one, I remember Alice Ho suggested this one. And so there were some girls when we watched this one the first time. So maybe that's why I liked it better. But regardless, overall, we give it a solid B. I found it thoroughly entertaining. I thought it was good for a crime drama. I thought the tone was appropriate. Again, there's a lot of like race topics in there, which again kind of get dull for me because in real life I don't think people are that racist or that prejudiced. Again, all self-hatred, all racism is self-hatred, and just depends on how it manifests. And so the script was a little kind of funky in some places. Again, it could just because it's a 20-year-old movie. But overall, I thought it thoroughly entertaining. Definitely a lot of big name actors in this one, actresses. And so I found this one entertaining. If you have not watched it, I recommend it. And if you have not seen it and would like to, you're going to shut off the video because there will be spoiler alerts. So the movie opens up, and you meet the Don Cheadle, I think that's how you say his name, character, but Detective Graham. And he's kind of standing over the kind of like this LA skyline, and he's looking down, and they're like, what do you got? And he's like, I got a body, or a dead kid. And then you get like a 24 hours earlier cut screen. So you have a bunch of different timelines going on. Let's go through the characterizations a little bit. You have Rick Cabot and Gene Cabot, the Brendan Fraser and Sandra Bullock characters. So I guess that was the dude that had a really emotional breakdown from playing the whale, which I thought was strange. But I didn't see the movie, just his reaction. It was just weird. Yeah. I just wish I could have recognition for my work too a little bit. But regardless, Brendan Fraser is a kind of a big-time politician, or Rick Cabot, and his wife, Gene Cabot, is the casually racist wife. You have Don Cheadle. He is the detective. You have Cameron Thayer and Christine Thayer. Cameron is a film director, and his wife. And then you have kind of a racist officer, and Officer John, played by Matt Dillon. Kind of like a new kind of officer played by Ryan Phillip, Officer Tom. And then you have Peter Waters, played by Lorenz Tate, and Anthony, played by Ludacris, who are kind of just like thieves. So there's kind of like the big things, and you also have a Persian family as well in here. And all of these timelines are kind of going on at the same time. So that opens up, you meet the Cabots. Gene is having a doorman replace her locks. Well, I guess they get robbed first. So the first kind of thing is Anthony and I'm going to mess up all the characters, but Anthony and Peter Waters, the thieves, they're walking down the street, and Anthony's sees Rick and Jean walking back, and they're just talking about race stuff. Like, look at that, everyone's racist, everyone's against the black people. And he sees Jean pull closer to Rick, like he's cold outside, or she's cold outside when they get close to the black people. And then Peter's just like, you don't know that she's racist, so she could just be cold. And he's like, no, it's because there's black guys around. And then Peter's like, or is it because we have guns? And then they proceed to actually carjack them. So they steal the car, they're driving it away. As they're driving away, they run over a Chinaman. That's literally what they say. And there's a kind of a funny scene, there's a Chinaman under the truck. And so they really severely injure this one guy, minor character, played by Daniel Day Kim. His name's Park. But he is severely injured. They kind of debate what to do, and they end up just dropping him off at the hospital. And so Jean is now getting she's kind of paranoid about her safety, so she's getting all the locks in her house changed, and they're in a wealthy neighborhood, a wealthy house. And that is who is that? Michael, or Daniel, Daniel, that's why I have him up there. But he is replacing the locks, and he was a big character from Shooter. But regardless, he's fixing the locks, and Jean is kind of ranting on about how, they're not safe, and that Daniel's a gangster, so he'll sell it to one of his hombres, and so she's being openly racist, kind of like directly in front of him. And so again, a lot of the characterization is based on the race and tension of that. But Daniel goes home, and his daughter is kind of like hiding under the bed, and I guess they moved out of a bad neighborhood, and she's afraid of bullets because a bullet went through her window before in the old house, and so she's kind of hiding under the bed because she heard a bang, and Daniel puts a fake cape on her, like literally an imaginary cape, just reassure a 5-year-old she's safe. And so that happens. That's going on. The same time you have Officer John, I believe, the older one. Yeah, Officer John, who's pretty openly racist as well. He's got an elderly father that struggles to go to the bathroom. He needs help with his prostate, and he's not sure if it's cancer or if it's just urinary tract infection. His medical provider says it's a urinary tract infection and there's nothing we can do, and he's fine. And Officer John's not too sure. So he's pretty openly racist. Him and Officer Tom pull over. They get, a call over the radio at APB, I think, or ABV or APV or whatever it's called, but about a stolen vehicle. And so Officer Tom's like, this vehicle clearly doesn't fit the description. Christine Thayer is giving Cameron a little road dome, and so he decides to pull him over. And then he humiliates Christine by, groping her crotch during a pat down, clearly going too far. And the Thayers are black and they're whites, playing off the race thing. And that's what happens. And Cameron's pretty much at a loss for what to do because, they get shot, it could escalate, whatever. And Christine is obviously disappointed or upset that she just got molested. And so that's kind of their relationship throughout, is they have rocky ground now because Cameron wasn't sure what to do, didn't have much options, and Christina felt extremely violated. And so the next day she goes to his work set, and he's not too responsive. He's pretty off-put and pretty distancing himself. So Christine leaves there pretty upset, and gets into a car crash. And so after that, Officer Tom is not comfortable riding around with Officer John. You have a minor character in Lieutenant Dixon, played by Keith David. And so Officer Tom's like, I want a new partner, but I don't want to make a big deal about it. And the lieutenant is just like, deal with it, or say you have bad flatulence. And so, regardless, Officer Tom does get a new partner, gets to ride alone, and John's like, wait till you've been on the force for a while, and they go out to patrol. And so Officer John, the one who groped Christine Thayer, she is now in a car accident. The car is flipped over, and he's the first responding officer. And so, there's a fire, and the gasoline is leaking, so they have an imminent car explosion coming, and so Christine really, is like freaking out, like get me out of here, and then realizes who it is, and is like, no, get away from me, and then ends up getting saved by Officer John. Again, some sort of like characterization development where it's like Officer John will cross the line to molest you, but then will actually try to save you, type of thing. So an interesting character relationship in that scene. But they end up getting Christine out just before the big explosion, and she kind of goes home and doesn't really come in until the end of the movie. And so after Anthony and Peter try to take the car that they stole that hit the Chinaman, there's blood on it, and it's a brand new Lincoln Navigator they can't get. It has blood on it, so if you'll get a new Lincoln Navigator, and so they go back out there. Again, the Persian families definitely had scenes by now. Again, these are all going on at the same time. So the Persian family, you have a dad, a daughter, and a mother, and they have this little store. And so in the very beginning of the movie, they're arguing about buying a gun. The father can't speak English, and so there's some racism about a white store clerk getting mad at an Asian or an Arab, or it's not even Arab, they're Persian, but regardless, getting mad at them. So some more race interaction scenes. But they get a gun, and the daughter of the Persian family, I just couldn't find the characters on the list. She buys blanks for the gun, but you don't really know that till later. And so that's what happens. They buy a gun for protection of their little shop, and then the Persian dad tries to get his door fixed, and Daniel, the guy that was working at the Cabot's house, comes over to try to fix the door, and he replaces the lock, and the door just won't shut. So there's some language barrier, and the Persian guy just wants the door fixed, and Daniel's like, I replaced the lock, but you need to fix the door. I don't have doors. I don't sell doors. And so he just basically crumbles up the work order and throws it in the trash. And so the next day, the Persian family comes in, and their entire store has been robbed and looted and destroyed. And so they get the insurance appraiser to come down, and because the work order said to replace the door, they cite negligence and they don't pay anything. And now, so the Persian father, gets the work order out of the trash, and you can tell he's going to go plot and try to, approach Daniel and maybe shoot him. So more cutscenes back to Anthony and Peter, and I guess also another big development is the Detective Graham is investigating a police killing. Basically, a white cop has shot and killed a black guy who turned out to also be a cop, and the white guy has has killed 3 people or shot 3 people, and they're all been black. And so there's another scene with a guy that was big from Prison Break, William Fichtner playing Jake Flanagan, some sort of political strategist or something. But they basically find $365,000 in the back of the car, and so what they originally think is going to be, Jake Flanagan, the William Fichtner character, wants to play the race card, and Detective Graham realizes that maybe this is just a drug deal gone bad. It has nothing to do with race. And so they have some back and forth there, but Detective Graham caves and decides to go with the race card as well. And so at this point, you pretty much can connect that Detective Graham and Peter Waters are brothers. And so they kind of have a mother that's old, and I don't know if she's schizophrenic or she has some sort of amnesia, but regardless, Detective Graham brings over some groceries for his mother, and she is, kind of not taking care of herself. And so that all happens, but Anthony and Peter need to get another Lincoln Navigator, so they go and try to rob. And this is at the same time that Cameron Thayer is leaving his work scene after Christine has, gotten rescued by the dude that groped her. And so they pull guns on Cameron, and Cameron's just not having it at all, so he just attacks them. They don't shoot him. He wrestles out Anthony and knocks Peter's gun out of the way. So one of them loses the gun, and basically the cops see this happening, and so the cops don't know what's going on, and Cameron's just fed up while he's getting carjacked. And so Peter's able to run away, and Anthony and Cameron are still in the car, and they start running from police. And so part of the people that are pursuing them is the officer Tom, the younger one that didn't like the groping of Officer John. He goes in there, and the car chase ends at kind of like a cul-de-sac. The cops are like, guns drawn, get out of the car, throw the keys out of the window, type of deal. And Cameron just gets out. He just doesn't care. And so he approaches the cops. The cops are like, "We're going to shoot you. We're going to shoot you." He does have a gun on him that was Anthony's that he put behind him, and Peter's gun had been kicked to the side. And it's important for little next scenes. And so he is armed, but Officer Tom talks down the other officers like, "I know this guy. I know this guy." Obviously feeling bad about the groping, and kind of knows the background, knows he has no priors and no weapons, even though he is armed in that scene, doesn't become consequential. Regardless, he's able to talk Cameron down. Anthony's just crouching in the car, nobody sees him. And so they're able to leave that after a tense interaction, and Officer Tom has done a good thing and talked the other officers down, so Cameron can leave. So Cameron and Anthony drive off, and Cameron gives Anthony back his gun and is like, "You disappoint me, you disappoint everybody." Kind of shames him, going from getting carjacked, kind of like covering his ass a little bit as well. And so that's what happens. The next thing that you see is they catch back up with Peter. He is walking down the street in the cold, and Officer Tom is off duty now in his civilian vehicle, and picks up Peter. And so Officer Tom is listening to some bluegrass country music, and Peter's kind of like, I liked him way better because he was a big character in The Wire. I forget what Clay Davis in The Wire, but I thought his characterization was fun in this one. But he was kind of lightly playing with Officer Tom about the music. Officer Tom's kind of he does pull over to give him a ride, but he's kind of gonna stick up his ass a little bit. And Peter, when they're originally going to jack the Cabot's Lincoln Navigator, Peter put a St. Michael's sticky thingy on the dashboard. And so when they're riding along, Peter's having a little kind of back and forth with Tom. Tom's kind of leery now, and Peter's just like, don't be so serious or whatever. And they kind of some back and forth. And then Peter sees the same sticky St. Michael thing that he has stuck to Officer Tom's dashboard, so he starts laughing. So Officer Tom takes that it's laughing at him, and he pulls over and is like, get out of my car. And Peter's like, come on, man, just keep driving. And he's like, Officer Tom's like, keep your hands where I can see them. Doesn't identify himself as a police officer, not consequential to the plot. But Peter's like, he gets fed up as well. It's like, man, I'll show you what's in my hand. And he goes to reach for something, and then you get a scene outside of the car, and then a thud, a gun flash, and a kind of muzzled gun sound. And Peter's now been fatally wounded. And so Officer Tom sees that the thing that Peter was reaching for was the St. Michael statue to show him that the three of us laughing because he does the same thing. And so Peter's now dead. So I thought it was a good dichotomy of back-to-back scenes of Officer Tom talking down the officers about Cameron, and then the next thing in his characterization is being too jumpy and killing an innocent person. Not super innocent because he's jacking cars, but in the scene, wasn't in the commission of a crime. So I thought that was good dichotomy, or just characterization, or just something a little novel or new. Back at the Persian family, the father finds the work order, goes back to Daniel's house, and his wife and young daughter are there, and he's getting out of his truck, just unloading for the day. The Persian father approaches Daniel, points the gun at him. The daughter sees what's happening, and she's a 5-year-old, and she has this imaginary cape to keep her safe. And so she runs out and to save her dad, and jumps in front of the guy right as the Persian father pulls the trigger. And they're all screaming, slow down the audio, and little slow motion dramatic scene. And they're looking for a gunshot wound, and nothing was in there. And so that is when he goes back to the shop. The daughter finds him, kind of just kind of extremely relieved. I thought the characterization was strong in this one as well. A person upset about being robbed, pulls the trigger, and then a huge sigh of relief they didn't actually kill the little girl. And so that's when you see that the daughter had bought blanks for the gun. And now, as an actual protection for your shop, that would not be a good idea. So that would not be a good idea. But that stuck out for me for a little bit. Again, as an actual defense mechanism for your shop, you would not be able to fire blanks. But regardless, that's what happens that's the resolution there. And now once Peter is dead, that's when you get definitive confirmation that Detective Graham is the brother. And so the mom blames Detective Graham for not finding the brother and getting him off the streets. And the mother is like, you know, the last thing he did for me, he did come home and brought me groceries, when it was really Detective Graham that brought her groceries. And so you don't get much resolution from him in terms of like, you know, a strong relationship with his mother. But the Cameron Thayer, or Gene Cabot and Rick Cabot call each other and say, Gene falls down the stairs and breaks her hip or sprains her ankle or something, and realizes like her characterization, she like realizes she has no friends and she's just in an uppity social circle because her friend wouldn't even come to help her because she was getting a massage. And so she's less racist towards the Latino or Latina housemaid, and that's her kind of growth or characterization as being less racist. But her and Rick say they love each other, as well as Cameron and Christine Thayer. They resolve from the beginning of getting the groping scenes, and they resolve to say that they love each other as well. Daniel and his family are relieved that the daughter is not injured. Officer Thomas just caught a body and burns his car, so his characterization kind of went off the rails. You don't really hear from Officer John anymore, and I think that's pretty much kind of it. And so the movie kind of finally resolves as you get all of these plot lines tying together, as well as the car that Officer Tom had torched to cover up the evidence about killing Peter. A bunch of kids are like just throwing more wood to like burn the car and just have a bonfire. And so Cameron Thayer, after reconciling with his wife saying "I love you," kind of stops by the fire and throws in some wood as well. And then there is another. Okay, so and then there was one other thing, and so Anthony is riding back on the bus, and he sees the car that they ran over the Chinaman that he was getting into, and so he like rings the public bus so he can get off. So he gets in that truck and goes to deliver it to this chop shop, where they take the stolen cars to get broken down for parts. And when they open up the back of this, it's a big kind of like utility van that you can see for like a plumber or something. And there's a bunch of like Malaysians or Cambodians in the back. So the Chinaman was doing some sort of like human trafficking or something. And so he is in the hospital, and he has his wife cash a check, which I'm assuming is associated with the running of people. And so the resolution to the movie, in addition to Cameron throwing the wood into the fire of the car, is also the markets are now open. Is Anthony, the ludicrous character. He sees all of these people in the back of the car. He takes it to the chop shop, and the dude's like, "I'll buy the people off you, and you can keep the van." And Anthony, decides not to, and takes the people back to Chinatown and lets them all out. And then you see another people get into a car wreck, and more kind of like racist stuff going on. So it's definitely a kind of commentary on a bunch of different race relations. I mean, it says it directly in the overview. Again, right after the time around 9/11. But overall, I thought it was, again, for a crime drama, that a genre that it can be very, very trite for me. I thought this one did very well with just the different characterizations and then the different timelines tying together. So I thought the plot was well written in this one. Just the script felt a little dated to me. I don't know why. So that's why it's a B. But overall, I thought it was unique in the timelines converging together. So overall, B, just solid B. I recommend it. So if you've not seen it, would like to. Well, at this point, you're gonna know the whole movie now. But thank you for watching my review of the movie Crash, and I will see you on the next one.